Our top story tonight concerns personal medical information. It's the sort of stuff that people keep pretty close to their chest, apart from that one friend on Facebook we all have who's sharing way too many reminders about the food blog they've started since quitting their full-time job at age 32. We get it, Janice, you're not happy. But all of this relates to something called MyHealth Record, a national digital database which collects information about your medical history in one place. And this program started in 2012 and has since grown to cover around 6 million Australians who've signed up. But what's controversial is that from October 15, the program will change from being opt-in to being opt-out to being Optimus Prime to being back to opt-in again. Which means Australians have until October 15 to opt out, or an electronic record will be set up for them. And the justification for the system is that an accessible electronic database could save lives, especially, say, for those patients with complex medical histories or if they live in the country. Although the chair of the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners' e-Health Committee, Dr. Nathan Pinskier, seen here in his Westlife days, says it's a fallacy to say that this is about saving lives, and partly that's because the record is not a complete and up-to-date clinical record. It's more of a medical summary than a complete history. Think of it as the horrible histories of medicine. I mean, sure, you've got an overview of ancient Greece now, but I'd also want to check that even the great Socrates could punch statues in half. And sure, an electronic system also helps GPs by reducing their admin. And certainly, when you hear about doctors still communicating medical records via fax, it does make you wonder how modern medicine actually is. But even if there are some benefits, there is a growing number of people urging Australians to opt out of the system on the basis of cybersecurity. Now, full disclosure, I am certainly no expert on cybersecurity because I don't understand the internet and all those memes and GIFs you children use to communicate. And yes, my password is also actually password. And saying that is hardly telling you something you wouldn't have just guessed already. But who is making this argument that we should all opt out? Well, one of the people saying that we should opt out is Paul Shetler. Well, who's he then? Some tinfoil hat wearing YouTuber who sits in his basement and films his daily video diary from the front line of the resistance that's here to warn us the plastic bag ban is just more evidence the government is in the deep pockets of big canvas, probably, yeah. Well, it says here that Paul Shetler is the man Malcolm Turnbull appointed head of the government's digital transformation agency, which was tasked with improving digital services like MyHealth Record. That is not good. When the guy who is in charge of the government's digital program says, "Oh, my health? Not for me, that one, not for me. You know you have a problem." That'd be like if you asked the Pope about the benefits of Catholicism and he said, "Look, I'm just the CEO, I don't use the product." So why is Shetler worried? Well, for starters, the idea that there's a database of practically everyone's personal information in the hands of a government whose idea of security is a filing cabinet is concerning. Because it's one thing for cabinet documents to end up in the hands of some dude in the ACT, but it's entirely another for some dude to find out that I dislocated a wrist after practicing high-fiving myself in anticipation of all the high-fiving I would have to do when the other year 8s found out the movie I'd chosen all of us to see for my birthday was not action-packed blockbuster Troy, but romantic drama The Notebook. And the danger is heightened because health systems are a huge target for hackers, as the information is basically all you need for identity theft or blackmail. So in 2017, a cyber attack on Britain's NHS brought the whole system to its knees, and here, criminals were selling Medicare card details on the dark web for as little as $30. And that's not good, because I'd like to think if you were going to buy my Medicare card details, that at the very least, you wouldn't just be able to pay wave that, you know what I mean? And it's not just hackers. The fact that 12 employees gained unauthorised access to personal income tax returns last year demonstrates that your data is also at risk from bored or vindictive public servants. And sure, I get it. If I had the power to discover what foods gave Corey Bernardi diarrhea, it would be tempting to find that out, if only so that I could tell the Parliament House canteen to reintroduce tuna Mornay Mondays. But that doesn't make this a good idea, and as well as that, the system lets external health apps access your records. And sure, they need your consent to do that, but they've already sorted out ways around that, as demonstrated by recent reports that one app was selling patient information to law firms, presumably because lawyers don't want you to be defined by the illness or injury you have. They want you to be defined by the illness or injury that makes them the most money. And given all of these security concerns, It's more than a little odd that the basic security settings aren't automatically activated, meaning unless you manually switch them on, anyone can access your data. So with that in mind, several peak health bodies have warned people with mental illnesses to opt out due to fears leaked data could be used to discriminate against them in employment, and raised concerns that perpetrators of family violence could access their partners' records and track them down. And despite all of the risks, the government isn't running large-scale print, radio or TV advertising campaigns to make people aware that this change is coming, which is weird given that during the postal survey they spent $15 million to help bankroll ads like this. So given all that, is anyone surprised that around 22,000 people opted out on the first day they could? I mean, maybe this system is the best idea in the world, but given everything I've read about privacy concerns and how little I've heard from the government about why this is secure, I can certainly understand that people might want to opt out, see how it works, and then opt in sometime in the future. And by the way, the government's pretty happy that only 22,000 people opted out at the first opportunity, although it turns out those 22,000 people each waited around an hour to 90 minutes on the phone just to opt out on day one, which puts that in perspective, really. I mean, like, Samsung released a phone that would actually explode and they had fewer people calling to complain. Mostly because when people tried to call, their face caught fire. Although, actually, now that I think about this whole thing, maybe it's time to dust off some of those old government ads again in a new context. We'll be right back.